Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Rod Khleif with me. Rod is a real estate guru. He has had ups and downs inside of his career as a real estate entrepreneur. He has a top podcast. He's a keynote speaker and does amazing work in coaching and different seminars as well. And something I'm really excited about to highlight in his story is how to grow a business, but then how to handle adversity when things aren't going quite like you thought they would. So, Rod, thanks so much for being on today.
Oh, let's have some fun, Phil. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, sir. So, to kick off your story, would love to highlight as a 6-year-old, you and your family moved from one country to the United States. So, talk a little bit about the immigrant lifestyle and the new opportunities, or maybe even the nervousness that comes with moving to America.
Oh yeah, no, there was a lot there. So yeah, I immigrated from the Netherlands with my brother Albert, my mother's Vantje, wooden shoes, windmills. Ended up in Denver, Colorado, and really struggled initially. We didn't have a lot of money. In fact, my mom, I remember eating expired food. We went to an expired food store, drinking powdered milk with our cereal in the morning, which sounds a whole lot better than it is. In fact, I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I got a job at Burger King, lying about my age when I was 14 because I was tall, so I could buy my own clothes and ultimately buy a car. And I'm sure, you probably got people listening to the show that had it harder than I did, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. Okay, she's an immigrant like me, and so she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she was an entrepreneur. She invested in the stock market successfully in IPOs, and she also invested in real estate. Her first real estate acquisition was the house directly across the street from us when I was 14. She paid about $30,000 from a family named the Jewels, I remember. And then when I was 17, she told me that she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You just made $20,000? You didn't do anything? Well, screw college, Mom. I'm getting into real estate. So I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which back then you could do with education. They got smart now. You need some experience before you can be a broker and have your own office. But I was a broker right when I turned 18. And well, my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe 10 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000. And so what I'm known for in talking about on my podcast and my boot camps is the mindset it took to 10x my income from year 2 to year 3. And really what happened was I met a guy that taught me about that mindset and psychology, and how 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and your psychology. And particularly as it relates to pivotal moments in your life, right? We all have things happen to us and we choose what meaning we place on them. But anyway, you fast forward to today. I've owned a couple thousand houses that I've rented long-term. I've built 27 businesses. I don't call them failures when they fail. I call them seminars. Several were worth tens of millions of dollars. The rest were spectacular flaming seminars. We fail our way to success, right, Phil? In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I thought I was a freaking real estate god. I got a head so big I could barely fit it through a door. And when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million in 2008 conservatively. And so, like I said, I focus on the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. I focused on talking about that. The mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place, and then the mindset it took to get back to the success that I'm blessed to have today. So we'll take this wherever you want to take it, brother.
No. And so talking about, I'm going to rewind a little bit to the immigrant lifestyle. You talked about mom had this extremely good work ethic, hard work ethic, and that passed on to you. What about, her work ethic as a child did you see that really sticks out to you? And you remembering being like, I need to embody that as well.
Well, listen, she went through World War II. She told me stories about walking along a train track, picking up bits of coal that have fallen off a coal train to heat their house. I remember she talked about a dead German soldier at the end of her block, and the fact that they rationed food. And my grandfather had a taxi business, and when there was no gas, he cut the front of a car off and hooked up horses so he could continue his taxi business. So I think she got the entrepreneurship bent from my grandfather. It was a beautiful human being when he was alive. And I think a lot of immigrants actually have that incredible work ethic that that they need to, to succeed in life. I mean, you see it in lots of different demographics, and the Chinese, the Asians, they come and they open their own stores and they make things happen. And and they don't sit on their laurels. And I mean, we won't go down a political rabbit hole, but they just don't sit here and complain about this country. They just go kick ass and make things happen. And you see that with a lot of immigrants, and that's very admirable in my opinion.
Absolutely. Now, the other part of being an immigrant, like you mentioned, was you brought a lot of old traditions with. And so you talked a bit about, as a child being bullied in school because
Right.
you didn't wear the same clothes as other people. Talk about, that impact on you as a young,
Sure.
man in
Sure.
those formidable years.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, I got thrown into school. I didn't speak English. I found out what bullies were for the first time. And so I got my butt kicked regularly. I hadn't learned how to fight back yet. I wish I'd run into some of those peeps now. But anyway, so and then my mom, God bless her, proud Dutch woman, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in wooden shoes and those leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest, the lederhosen. So I got my butt kicked again. And then they chased me home from school, and my mom, to protect me, quote in air quotes, would chase them off with a fly swatter. So next day I got a butt kicking again. And I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. And a lot of people have these limiting belief systems, like I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not old enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. And listen, there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are BS. Yeah. But because we place emotional weight on them because we had some emotional moment happen in our childhood. Sometimes it's subconscious. We're not even aware of it, that our brain places weight on, and we think it's factual and it's not. And so, I'm going to tell you, if you're listening and you have one of those, see, I used to be so introverted. I'd be afraid to raise my hand in class and afraid I'd get embarrassed or humiliated. But what I did was I dragged that BS out into the daylight, and I looked at it with my adult rational mind. And I recognized that anybody that would reject me just didn't know me, or they had their own crap going on. Okay. It was them, not me. And it took a lot for me to do that. But here's the key. If you've got any of these limiting beliefs that you're consciously aware of, bring them out into the daylight, look at them consciously. And that's the operative word, consciously. Look at them consciously, and they will start to diminish and ultimately go away. I mean, I speak in front of thousands of people a year now, and it was unthinkable when I was younger because of, this belief system that I had. So just drag it in the daylight and you'll diminish it.
Yeah. Now, at some point, maybe somebody exposed you to that idea, but how did it come about? Was there a mentor that said, "Hey, you need to deep dive into these things," or how did that come to be for you, Rod?
Well, so again, I met that guy that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and I actually dated his daughter, and so so he was the start, but then after that, I spent a lot of time with Tony Robbins. I spent 20 years following him around the planet, and he's the best in the world at it. Okay. Yeah. And so, and I really, got tremendous value from spending time with him. And that really helped give clarity to some of those pivotal moments that I had in my life. Because now if you ask me about losing $50 million in 2008, I'll tell you, I would give it all up again because I never would have met my wife, and I'd give it all up again for her. I mean, not only is she supermodel beautiful, but she's more beautiful on the inside than the outside. And so, life is about meaning, Phil, and you choose what meaning you place on what happened to you. And some people can have from outward appearances, let's say two people have what from outward appearances, what looks to be a horrific event in their life. One person comes out stronger and the other person is destroyed, and it's based on meaning. And so, I got to see examples of this in the Tony environment where he'd bring someone on stage that was a quadriplegic or, I remember he brought somebody that was a POW for like 8 years, and the guy came out stronger than when he went in, and other people, were suicidal and didn't make it. And so, I love that about your show, in that, we all have these pivotal epiphany moments that it can be life-changing, and they very often are life-changing, depending upon the meaning that's placed on them.
That's so good. I think the point that you're making there that reverberates with people is at some point it does become a choice, right? It's not that these events that happen aren't horrific. They're not terrible. But what happens after is up to me. Love it, Rod.
Well, and you, again, you can choose to put a positive meaning on anything. I lost 50 million freaking dollars. I thought I was set for life. And when I tell you that, I would never have met my wife if it hadn't happened. And, screw it. That's just money, And so again, and there are lots of examples that I've done in my own life to change the meaning of what happened to me. I mean, I could, and I will tell you some of the stuff that happened to me that, people looking at it from the outside might think, man, I'm surprised he's, not just destroyed, made me stronger. And so again, if you've had some, even what outwardly could be horrific things have happened to you, just remember, you can rewrite that history in your mind. You can literally change that history in your mind. It takes some effort, but it's absolutely doable. I've seen it happen numerous times at Tony Robbins events. But and I've done a version. I'm not going to claim that I've had some of these things, horrible things happen to me. I won't describe some of them, but really horrific things but what has happened to me, I've been able to pivot and grow from and learn from and not let it be debilitating.
Absolutely. Now, you hinted on this earlier. You start in the real estate industry, and to say you got off to a smashing success would probably be an overstatement. Mm-hmm. The question that I have for you is, as people get started in real estate, starting a company, starting a business, mm-hmm. oftentimes the thing they're focused on is where somebody that's had good numbers, right? Good results is at. And if they don't get there quick enough, or if they don't get there right away, they start to feel like maybe this isn't for me. What about it for you after those first 2 years of, my guess, probably not hitting the goal you were setting for yourself, inspired you to stick with it, though, to get to that third year where you saw this cataclysmic jump?
If you don't mind, I'd rather answer that question a different way.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you come to my boot camp, for example, I do one live boot camp a year. I've got one coming. I don't know when this episode will air, but it's coming July 29th, 30th, and 31st. If you have an interest in multifamily, for God's sakes, come. I'll give your peeps a deal. They can come for $197. It's not a sales pitch. It's just 3 days of drinking through a fire hose about buying multifamily real estate. So in fact, let me just land that plane right now so I don't forget. If you're interested in learning about multifamily real estate, text my name Rod to 72345, and then remember the code RODFRIEND so you can come for $197. And again, it's not a sales pitch. I mean, it's learning every aspect of the multifamily business. And I'm telling you, we're heading into a recession. So there's an incredible opportunity coming, not something to fear, something to get excited about. But if you're trying to learn the real estate business in the midst of it, it'll be too late. So the timing couldn't be better to learn this business. And now I lost the question. What was the question again?
You are
never pretty when you lose your mind.
No, I'm glad you jot that down. We'll make sure to highlight that again. But just, after those first 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Not, hitting the mark or that maybe you were setting, but still sticking through.
I know why I went to the boot camp, because the first thing we do at the boot camp is we do the first hour and a half, our goal setting on steroids. Because how the heck do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what you want with clarity, and you have to know why you want it. And so that's the first thing we do. And by the way, if you're not interested in real estate and you want to do that goal setting session, I'll give you a link where you can, I did it on January 1st with a guide you can download. It's very, very powerful. If you go to rodslinks.com, at the bottom is my goal setting guide. It's professionally done with music, and I will juice you and your spouse do it together and have your children do it. It's super powerful. So again, rodslinks.com, the goal setting is awesome, but that's the first thing we do. And you got to have what Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls a burning desire. It's the only way you're going to push through these limiting beliefs like I just talked about. It's the only way you're going to, push through fear. We all have fear. It's the only way you're going to get uncomfortable. The comfort zone's a warm place, and we all know nothing freaking grows there, right? And so that burning desire is how you get through it. And the only way you're going to have that is to have these goals. You've got to know what you want and why you want it with clarity. And so, like I say, that's how I recovered from losing $50 million, was reassociating with what I wanted. It would have been very easy for me to look in the rearview mirror and say, woe is me, and let that $50 million loss become my identity. And that's another thing, be very careful of. You're going to have vehicles that will help you towards your success, like real estate, like entrepreneurship, like investing, whatever it is. But remember, it's the vehicle. It is not who you are. Okay. Because if the vehicle crashes and burns, okay, fine. If the vehicle fails, yes, that vehicle failed, but you're not a failure. If it's your identity and you associate too closely with it, then you can really get beat up by having it be your identity. Now, I want to tell you on that note, there's no greater force in the human psyche than the need to remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. You know, for example, anything you put the word I am in front of is an identity statement. So like, I don't know, do you put these on YouTube or just on iTunes?
Both.
You put them on? Okay, let me show you on my wall here. I am the best in the world at what I do. I am a business genius. Again, I am success. Okay, again, those two words, I am, are incredibly powerful. And I have yelled this stuff, and this is not me trying to brag. This is me. These are affirmations. These are what I'm aspiring to be, right? Yeah. And so I've yelled that stuff at the top of my lungs. I am health and energy. I am courage. I'm determination. In fact, my kids help me at my boot camps. Well, you know, the last one we had 800 or 900 people, and that's the question they get most often: does he really yell that stuff in his ear? And they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And then I do, because it freaking works. Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, some of you analytical ones are like, oh, "Okay, we're in foo-foo land now." Well, I'm going to tell you, this is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back and then some. So, you know, because this stuff does work. Anyway, I forgot the question again. But anyway, hopefully. Good. Okay. All right.
That's great. Now, the other piece that I would ask is, so you get to that third year and you have these big jumps of success. What got you into starting to buy real estate yourself then? So you're doing a great job.
My mom with that house across the street. Did I talk about that?
Yep.
Okay. I had a couple other interviews this morning, and I sometimes I cross-pollinate what I've talked about. But yeah, no, I mean, it was her getting into real estate. And when she told me she made 20 grand, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing college. So I didn't do college. Now I will say this in my defense, I'm extremely well read. I've got a library that will blow your mind, thousands of books. I can't say I've read them all, but you know, I'm very well read. And learners are earners. I could show you a photograph taken of me. In fact, if you'd like, make me a co-host for a second. I'll flash it up for the people on YouTube, and then I'll describe it. Hang on one second. Let me just find it real fast. Yeah, here it is. Let's see. So what this is, for those of you that aren't, hang on, there it is. Okay. For those of you that can't see this, this is a picture of me with some of the boot camps and lanyards from some of the boot camps and masterminds that I belong to. Yeah. You know, there's a couple hundred. I've got my arms out and they're hanging on my arms and they're around my neck, because this is my formal education, which, you know, learners are earners. So, you know, let me just say that. Now, of course, to be braggadocious, I'm in front of my Bentley and one of my Mercedes, but the point is, but the point is, learners are earners. And so, yeah. Never stop learning. And, you know, I remember my son asking me when he was 9 years old, I was going to a real estate boot camp and I already owned 2,000 houses. Like, why are you going? You could teach it. And I'm like, because there's always something to learn. So anyway, I'm sure I digressed there, but yeah.
That's really good. Now, one of those boot camps, or I guess events that you start going to that you mentioned, are Tony Robbins events. So yeah. What was the catalyst to get you to your first one, and what kept you going back?
Okay, great question. That's a bit of an answer there. So, you know, I when I lived in Denver, I knew I wanted to live on the beach, and of course, there's no beach in Denver, and so I but I visualized it. I visualized the palm trees and the surf and the sand, and you know, and 20 years later, I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach. It was spectacular. I owned the beach on one side and I had my boats on the backside. It was called a Gulf to Bay. It was like a slice through an island. And I mean, to describe this house, I had a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. Pool was in magazines. It was spectacular. I had these trees that cost me tens of thousands of dollars that bent out over the tree and then bent out over the pool and then went up. It had a wine cellar, an elevator, giant spiral staircase up through the middle of the house. I'll just land the plane with this. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So that gives you an idea of the house. Yeah. Okay. So I worked for this thing for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. The pool's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was I built it to prove the world I was good enough. Yeah. And I got depressed. And I don't mean a little, I mean a lot. And so, you know, I and I thought, what the hell? I've just like achieved success like times 10,000. I had the Mercedes in the garage, I had the boats and the jet skis and this, $8 million house, my beautiful family inside. And this was 2 months after I finished it. Okay. And what I realized, there was several things happening, and I tell this story around goals because whenever you achieve a big goal, you should always have other goals lined up behind it, because like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for the future. I didn't know what I was going to do next. And happiness never comes from the goals. They say the happiest days of a boat owner's life, the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat. It's the truth. Happiness comes from progress and growth. Yep. But the big thing was, I'd been totally focused on Rod. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. And Rod, me. Well, that's the year. And then when that happened, I went out and bought some books. I'm like, man, I got to get this back because this is ugly. I'm really feeling terrible. Yeah. So I got, Zig Ziglar and Dale Carnegie, and I got a Tony Robbins book. I'm like, holy shit, I really like this. I was about halfway through. I'm like, I'm going to go speak and see him. And this was 22 years ago.
Wow.
And I found out that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. Yeah. But I came back and I called my brother because I was going to go see him in Denver Thanksgiving. I said, man, let's feed 5 families. So he went to his church and he got 5 families that really needed help. And we got big boxes of food. We got frozen turkeys. We got toys for the kids if we knew they had kids. And we get to this third house and this woman comes out. She's in this crappy 1-bedroom with 5 kids. And she comes out and she sees all the stuff on the porch and she starts crying, and her kids come out. The 2 older ones start crying, and then I start crying, and I'm freaking hooked. And I'm blessed to say, Phil, in the last 22 years, we have fed 110,000 children over the holidays. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies for local kids that don't have basic supplies for school. Don't get me started on that. We've got, done tens of thousands of teddy bears to the local police departments for officers to keep in their vehicle if they encounter a child that's been traumatized. Now, I'm not bragging here because there's a message. So listen up. Those of you listening, listen up. Okay. We've been taught to achieve to be happy. Like we can't be happy until we've achieved, right? That's a very common misnomer out there. I'm going to tell you, if you figure out how to give back in any fashion, you'll be happily achieving. Okay. Now, Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement really is a science. If you want to learn multifamily, for God's sakes, come to my boot camp. I promise you, you'll be glad. In fact, if you come and you don't love it, I don't mean like it, I mean freaking love it, I'll give you your money back afterwards. Okay. But anyway, so because achievement really is a science, it's a blueprint. You just have to follow our blueprint and do it, and success is inevitable. Okay. Yeah. But you got to do it. But fulfillment is an art, okay? Because it's got to do what juices you, right? And for me, it's kids, but maybe for you, it's the elderly, maybe it's the environment, maybe it's animals, whatever it is, figure out how to incorporate it into your life right now. Don't say, I'll do it when I have money. No, do it right now, even if it's just your time. Why? Because the money will come faster, I promise you. But more importantly, you'll be happier, okay? You'll be happily achieving instead of achieving to be happy. And I know it's a play on words, but it's an important one. So figure out how to give back right now. I promise you'll be glad you did, and your success will come faster. You don't do it for that reason, but it will.
It's like you said, when you start realizing that there are things and people that need what you have the ability to offer, and you can help them, it's so impactful and so fulfilling to you. That's a great point. Now, as you mentioned, being in real estate is oftentimes a good thing, but there are certain times, 2008, where it ended up being a really tough thing. So talk about, for you, you had grown this phenomenal portfolio from really sounds like 0 homes to, $50 million. Talk about a little bit of the progression of that, but then talk about in 2008, what kind of led to that loss in value of properties for you.
Okay. Well, there's a lot that you just asked. Okay. Let me just say that. I mean, how I bought, I had 800 houses when the market crashed. I had multiple apartment complexes, and I bought those houses any number of ways. Okay. I mean, I bought them in packages. Sometimes most of them were one-on-one. I bought bank repos, I bought foreclosures, I bought, just tons of different ways. I mean, we could spend 5 hours talking about that. So just know that there were a lot of ways that I bought them. But what caused the crash? Well, I mean, countries went bankrupt, so I can't feel bad about me. But I was only at a 30% loan to value. I only owed 30 cents on the dollar. People are like, oh, you were over leveraged. No, I
Right.
was
Yeah.
way under leveraged. Okay. But here's what caused the crack for me, what caused the implosion. First of all, I live in Florida, and these houses were in Florida. They were about 2 hours north of me, 2 hours south of me, and everywhere in between along the Gulf Coast. Florida has no state income tax, so the property taxes are higher here, which impact cash flow,
Yeah.
right? I had properties in wind and flood zones, higher insurance, which impact cash flow. But what really killed me is if I sent a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. So the plumbing parts, the HVAC parts, the appliance parts, the windows, doors, locks, all that stuff's the same. So you can stockpile parts and they can be in and out in an hour. Well, if they had to go to one of my houses that was, say, an hour and a half away, one way, they'd have to go see what's wrong. Then they'd have to go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we had an account. And I don't know about you, but when Rod tries to fix something, he ends up going to Home Depot more than once. And same thing with these maintenance guys. And these were C-class houses, okay? C-class is A, B, C, and D. D is the hood. Stay out of the hood. Ask me how I know. But C, these were C, which is just a step above. So they're older. They're a tougher demographic that's harder on these assets. And so lots of maintenance. And so there was lots of maintenance. And so that took all day at one of my houses to get a maintenance request done, where it took an hour at one of my apartment complexes. That really killed me. But then the final straw was I didn't really pay attention to tenant demographics back then. If they had decent credit and a job, I let them rent, and they paid a deposit and so on and so forth. And I didn't realize that a lot of these renters that I had were jobbers. They were contractors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, you name it. And that fell off a freaking cliff in 08.
Yeah.
They didn't have work. And so, and then what's really crazy is my portfolio in value actually dropped. It went underwater. It dropped more than 70% here in Florida. And it was like ground zero for that contraction. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm done. I hate it because I'd love to have those 800 houses now. Good God. But it is what it is. Again, I wouldn't have met my wife, So again, there you go. That's the meaning.
Yeah. Now to jump into that part of it, right? So we've built this up, we've seen it come down. Talk about bouncing back. I mean, you mentioned it earlier,
reassociating with what I wanted.
Yep.
Getting around a peer group. I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership at that time. I was around people that were thriving through the crash. They're like, okay, big pussy, get up. You lost 50 million, big deal. Just go make it happen. Okay. Yeah. So that's who you want to be around,
right?
In anything. You want to be around people that think what you think is hard is easy. Yeah. Like right now, I host the largest mastermind of its kind in multifamilies, about 14 billion in assets in there. In fact, we're meeting next week in Houston. And these are guys that have tens of thousands of units. Because again, I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy. That's why I created it. And it turned into this big thing. But so peer group is a big piece. Reassociating with what I wanted is a big piece. Managing your focus. If you're listening to Phil, you're a leader. And right now, more than ever, the world needs leaders. We won't get started on this political nonsense, the fake news that's going on out there right now. So it's so important that you bring in the good stuff right now. My podcast called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. Even if you're not interested in real estate, I do a clip every week called Own Your Power. And it's just about that. It's about motivation and mindset to get you juiced. If you give me 5 minutes a week, that's all the longer they are. There's hundreds of them on there. You give me 5 minutes a week, I will juice you if you need a push, kick in the butt. So again, it's Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm really proud of it. And I know that's why we broke 13 million downloads, because people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And those little clips really make you feel. Look in the mirror, which you need to look in the mirror consistently. For me, I want to be every year I want to be a better father, a better husband, a better business person, a better human being. And that's what you do when you're willing to look in the mirror and work on yourself. And that's what those Own Your Power clips are. But so that's really important. Stand guard at the door to your mind. Keep out all that fake news crap and bring in the good stuff. If not me, go to YouTube University and listen to motivational clips there. I love to watch soldiers coming home. I cry like a freaking baby every time, but I love to watch that stuff. And, and stars surprising, their fans and stuff like I love watching that feel good stuff. So do that, really pay attention to what you're bringing in. Focus is critical.
Yes.
And so that's another thing. And, I don't listen to many podcasts, but one of them is Tim Ferriss. Okay. And I get excited about my 13 million downloads. I think he does that a week. But what he does is he interviews some of the best in the world at what they do. You know, the best athletes, Michael Phelps, actors, Arnold and Ed Norton and Jamie Foxx and Hugh Jackman and billionaires like Ray Dalio. And what he does is he deconstructs that success. And I started to hear a pattern. They all freaking meditate. What does meditation enhance? Focus, right? Focus is critical. So peer group focus, knowing what you want, goals. And then you got to make a decision. Okay. Yeah. That's the bottom line. And the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. If you're going to attack the island in battle, you're burning your ships because you're taking their damn ships home. That's a decision. It's done. It's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's not one toe in the water. It's freaking done. And then when you do that, you're like a train on a track. And if you don't do that, you're going to get knocked off track. So, you know, you got to make that decision. Then you just have to take massive freaking action. Really recognizing that action mitigates fear. You know, it's a counterintuitive that as you take more action, the fear dissipates, and we all have the fear.
Yeah.
So
living in the gray, right? You know, if you make a decision one way or the other, hey, it allows me to be moving forward or moving, and the more I'm moving, the better I feel about it. That's great. Now, you mentioned a couple of times because of the crash and the real estate conundrum for you, you get the opportunity to meet your wife. So talk about how that ended up happening in your story.
Well, I mean, listen, if I had still been riding high, chances are my marriage wouldn't have collapsed. Okay. Yeah. And so I'd still be with her, and she's a nice person and all that, but she wasn't for me, and it was the wrong fit. And you know, unfortunately, it's 12 years in, and we've got 2 beautiful kids as a result of it, which I'm blessed and grateful for. But that's one of the reasons. I wouldn't have moved to Florida, which is another reason. Okay, and I'm sorry, that's not correct. I'm sorry. I would have likely, geographically, it was a component, and so that was an issue. Actually, I'm sitting here thinking about how that worked out. I know how that worked out, but I'm losing it in my mind. But the bottom line is I wouldn't have met her, period. And you know, the mechanics of that aren't as important as the fact that it's real. And so, you know, it's and again, that's what, you know, I could be real miserable about it. And I've had other epiphanies like that. I mean, you know, things that have happened in my life that I've had to change the meaning on that were really painful, frankly. You know, I'll give you another example. I remember, you know, and I mentioned this before we started recording, that this isn't really out there very, very, very much, this example. But I when I was real young in my 20s, I really kicked butt in real estate. I was flipping houses and wholesaling and buying and all that stuff. And I mean, I lived in the equivalent of about $1 million house. Actually, right now that house probably worth $2 million in Denver. But and I had a Maserati, I had a Rolls Royce. I mean, I know my neighbors thought I was a drug dealer because I was at home playing around, but I was just doing real estate. And then the market crashed and I lost everything. That house went to foreclosure. I had to sell the Rolls Royce to make a payroll, and I mean, it was ugly. And I remembered then I had to paint houses so that I have enough money to eat. I remember my mom bringing me groceries because she was worried about me. Okay. Yeah. So I went from $1 million house, you know, Rolls Royce, to freaking mom bringing me groceries. And I remember I was painting this house and I had a meltdown. It's like, and I just threw the brush down. I started crying. I'm like, fuck this. And and I never looked back. And you know, and I bought 500 houses in Denver on that next run. And that was an epiphany moment for me. You know, I know that's what your show's about, but it was like, you know, I had to have massive leverage on myself, and I had to reach that tipping point. And that was the tipping point, you know, was what the hell am I doing? Painting houses. I went from all of that to this. Are you kidding me? And it was ugly, and there was snot coming out of my nose, but you know, we need that sometimes. Sometimes I will tell you, disgust. I did an Own Your Power clip about disgust. Disgust is a very powerful emotion for change. Okay. So anyway.
No. Now, as you're saying that, you know, some of the things that you talked about earlier were, I purchased things because it validated me. I purchased material objects because, you know, I wanted to prove or show what I had accomplished. You also earlier mentioned that a portion of you had, you know, kind of some deep-seated we'll just say maybe undealt with issues from childhood, and talk a bit about that, working through the deep-seated historic things to realize today that it's not the physical things that I own or the things that I purchase that are going to lead me to this fulfillment.
Well, listen, it's different for everyone. Okay. And everyone listening to your show right now has different things that will help them feel fulfilled. And some of them are material. Some of them are relationships. Some of them are, emotional growth. Some of them are, a level of success, whatever their definition of that is. And so, you've got to determine what that is for you. I gave you examples of utilizing giving back, and I mispronounced it, so I'm just going to say giving back to be happy while you're achieving. But for me, it was material things for a long time. I mean, I've had the cars, the Lamborghinis, the Rolls Royce, the Bentley, all this stupid shit I thought was important. A few $100,000 worth of watches. I still love that. Almost bought one in St. Bart's, but I'm like, what? There's a recession coming. That 50 grand will go a long way towards, some real estate. So I'm not going to do it. And my wife was pleased. But anyway, but the point is, success means different things for different people. It doesn't matter what it is, right. but the key is to focus on that. And manifest it and whatever that looks like. And I give, like I say, at my boot camp, if you watch my goal setting video, you'll learn a lot about how I did it and how other people have done it. And, I don't know if I mentioned, my student success. Did I mention that? Okay. So I've been teaching a little over 4 years. My students own somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70,000 units that we know of. I'm super proud of that, and I mean, next to my kids, it's probably something I'm most proud of. And it's because of that focus on mindset. It's that focus on and visualizing and manifesting these things. And, I've got, like, I teach them, to get pictures. I've got pictures in my planner here of things that they've been in here for 20 years, things that I wanted, first pictures of my gratitude pictures. Okay. Because everything starts from a place of gratitude. These are pictures. My kids are 30 and 26. These are pictures when they were very young. Because to get anything in life, you got to have gratitude. But then I've got, pictures of the things that I wanted, that house on the beach. I lost that house and all the craziness. And now I live in a compound. I've got 6 buildings. But this picture on top looks just like what I had before I even got it. So that's another thing. Get pictures the way you want. Get them around you. Travertine floors, 10-foot high glass like that. This is before I ever built a house. Then this bottom picture, I live in a compound now. I've got 6 buildings. I've got a 2-bedroom guest house on the water, a big main house. I've got an exercise facility, video studio I built because I took some of my events virtual. And look at the wall. You can see, those of you who can't see this, there's a white wall in these bottom 2 pictures, stone wall. That's my backyard right there. Wow. There's the stone wall. Is that crazy? It's the same stone wall as the picture's been here for 20 years. Then I've got stupid crap, by the way, because God's got a sense of humor, my old house that I lost and all the craziness, that mansion on the beach is literally across the bay from me. It's right out my backyard. It's hilarious. But he didn't plan it, but that's how it worked out. But then I've got stupid crap like those watches that I got, the Lamborghini that I thought was important at one time, Rolls Royce, Bentley, all the stuff I got because I had pictures. So, get pictures of the things that you want, put them around you. And I know I've probably lost a few more you analytical ones, but guys, this stuff works. Okay. Making these declarations works. Getting them around you works. Like right here you can see right there. What does that say? 1 million per month. Okay. Yeah. I've got one above my bed, says 1 million per month net cash flow. My wife hates it, but it used to say 100,000. And of course we've massively eclipsed that. But again, this stuff works, guys. So get that stuff around you.
That's really good. Now, Rod, you end up writing a book, and I want you to talk a little bit about the book that you were able to write.
Well, it's funny. I started my podcast, and I just wanted to tell people about my story, and if they were going to invest, for God's sakes, do multifamily, not single family, just because of my own experience. And I used to say, if you listen to the first few episodes, I say, I'll never sell you anything because I never planned to. I just wanted to add value. I used to take free phone calls from my listeners and 30-minute phone calls, did hundreds of them, and just adding value. I didn't have anything to sell. But then, I hit 1 million downloads. I'm like, okay, knucklehead, you probably ought to do something with this. So I wrote that book. Took me like 1.5 years to write it, but it became a bestseller, #1 bestseller in several categories. but it's just about buying multifamily real estate. And I still give it away for free. I gave away 20,000 of the PDF copies. Now it's on Amazon. And if you go to that Rod's links, you just pay the shipping, you can have it for free. And it's really good. And there's other free books there as well. If you go to Rod's links, if you have any interest in real estate, for God's sakes, go there and get some of that free resources. Do the goal setting thing. You'll see the link to my boot camp. If you can make it to Denver, I promise you'll be glad you did that. Yeah, so I wrote the book just to have something to add value with. And then, when that took off, I just did some courses and now I do live, so speak in front of thousands of people a year. I'm speaking on a stage with Shaq and Jocko Willink and Barbara Corcoran here in a couple of months. And, just stuff that was unthinkable for me, for the guy who was afraid to raise his hand in class, that he might get embarrassed, So, as it relates to limiting beliefs, right?
You bet. Rod, any other pivotal moments that you want to make sure we highlight today in your story, or things that really stand out to you?
Yeah, that $50 million one's a pretty big one. If you meet anyone that lost more, please let me know so I can feel better about it. But there've been so many, we have these epiphanies, we have these ahas. I mean, like that big one there, when I realized the multifamily, if I hadn't cross collateralized my apartments with packages of houses, I still have them. So that was a big pivotal moment, epiphany for me. Yeah. That moment, throwing down the paintbrush and crying like a big baby was a pivotal moment. And really, I'll tell you, I had one in Denver. I did a boot camp in Denver previously, and my brothers brought my mom. She was in assisted living. She was in her wheelchair, and she was in the front row, and there was 800 people there. This is about 6 months before COVID hit. And I'm behind the curtain crying like a freaking baby because, she's the whole reason I got into real estate.
Yeah.
And then I've got 800 people out there. I've got a huge business and changing. I mean, and this is not ego, when I tell you that I get love anywhere from 4 to 15 times a day in a DM, an email, a gift in the mail, card. I'm not exaggerating, and that's not ego. It's just I'm blessed, and that's why I love what I do and why my wife puts up with me working as hard as I do. But that was an epiphany there when she was out there, and she's the reason I got into it all, and just to be in front of hundreds of people, and that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yes. Rod, I want to say thanks so much for sharing your story and the journey that you've been on, all the amazing things you've been able to accomplish. And excited to continue to track your story and all the amazing things that you'll continue to do.
Thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.